Okay, we're back with another episode of Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Today we have another part two on the show. These part twos are really building because, and especially on this episode, we get to follow a company while they're releasing technologies into the market, and then we get to revisit them as they've scaled up and overcome new challenges and refine the products. It's so much fun doing the part twos. And obviously, the more you get to know someone, the conversation flows easier. So today we have Gary Agnew. He's the CEO and co-founder of Ideon Technology. Gary, welcome to the show. It's great to have you back here.
Yeah, Jared, lovely to see you. Thanks very much for the invite back.
You've been, from my understanding, you've had a pretty busy time since you were last on. I think it was under a year ago, but a lot has happened at Ideon.
Yeah, busy would be an understatement, Jared. Yeah, very, very busy. Lots been happening in our world. We've doubled the size of the team since the last time we were chatting. We've been deploying our technology all over the world with the mining industry, getting some tremendous traction in the market. Yesterday we moved into a new facility, and so all great signs of the business is moving forward and gaining some great momentum.
With all the stuff you're handling, I was handling, and I was looking at your LinkedIn, just sort of your past companies and you've been in leadership positions for a huge part of your career. Is there a few things that sort of stand out to you that, and I often ask this stuff at the end of the interview, but I was curious to kind of kick it off with this. Are there a few things, like moving into an office, but other things as a leader that sort of kind of get you fired up?
Yeah, I think a huge part of the role as a leader is to create clarity for the team. And so for me, what gets me fired up is seeing, we were a team of 5 people. If I rewind 2 years ago, we're now a team of well over 20 people, and seeing the team come together. And we've focused a lot, obviously, on the technical skills that we need to deliver our vision, but also we've focused on hiring great human beings. We think that's really important because we're a multidisciplinary business. We have geosciences, technologies, etc., all as part of our solution. And so bringing people together who can collaborate, who can break down any barriers between the scientific domains to provide a holistic solution. So building the team is one of my favorite parts of the role. Seeing the culture and develop and grow and people come into the business and become part of something we think is pretty special.
When you have a new team member, do you, we're going to move into the technology very quickly here, but when you get a new team member, do you sort of, just as a management perspective, again, looking at your career and seeing how much experience you have, do you spend some time just teaching them, or do you try to get their ideas? Do you start flushing out what they can bring into the company quite quickly, especially on that small team? If someone has an opinion, it kind of everybody knows what that opinion is very quickly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, of course, we're hiring people with technical and as I said, great human skills that we think are important to deliver the vision. But when you hire those people in, it would be crazy not to listen to their ideas and hear their views. And so, yeah, we've got a roadmap and we're on a journey and moving the business forward. But part of the joy of bringing new people in is fresh eyes. They look at what we've been doing through different lens and the people that have been here for a while, and they can often identify gaps or opportunities to improve what it is we're doing. So that's part of the joy of bringing new people into the business.
Well, it's even if you're trying, you're really always looking for new ideas. It's hard to not get into some sort of little bubble, and someone just kind of comes in and pops that for you, and you kind of get going again.
Yeah, and that's actually, Jared, is one thing I focus on a lot with the team, because I think a lot of organizations, there are consequences to getting things wrong. And what we're trying to do here at Ideon is create a culture where people are prepared to take risks, prepared to go out of their comfort zone and shoot higher, be more bold in terms of the objectives. And so when you do that, I think what you've also got to be is you've got to create a safe work environment that people know that when things don't go to plan or you don't hit the aspirational objective, that the team around them are going to be supportive and not critical in that moment. So that's an important ingredient in the culture, encouraging people to shoot higher, be bolder, but also know that, when things go wrong or go sideways in that context, that we're going to be around supporting them and helping them to take the learnings out of that particular opportunity and apply them to the next one.
Well, and I think I'm glad we talked about it at the beginning because I think it sort of leads into the success that your company is having. And I want to touch on one more thing that's obviously a good thing for your company, is the mineral demand that has just exploded, and I don't even think we've begun to see the beginning of it. I think
Yeah.
we're just getting to the beginning of the story. Can you talk a little bit about the industry that you're looking at that's, that wasn't in near demand even a few years ago or a couple years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the benefits we've got with our technology, Jared, is that it can be deployed in a number of different vertical markets. And so we've done a lot of work over the last couple of years to determine which of those markets makes most sense for us and most sense for the world. And what we quickly got to is mining is where the action is at, because the phrase I use is there is no energy transition without mining. And this is a hard reality that I think the world's got to understand and accept, because in order to have electric vehicles, solar, geothermal power, nuclear power, you need minerals from the earth to enable those clean technologies. And so, yeah, we have to pinch ourselves sometimes, Jared, because over the last couple of years, it just feels like the momentum, the size of the demand, and importantly for us, the size of the gap in supply to meet that demand is just getting bigger and bigger all the time. And so, yeah, we describe it as we're at the early innings of the energy transition, and there is already a global supply demand imbalance. And you see some of these critical minerals today at 10-year and in some cases all-time highs in terms of their pricing. So, the world needs to solve this problem, and Ideon is clearly a tool and a capability that we can help the industry find more critical minerals.
Now let's give a shout out to this episode's sponsors. First up, we have Dayquip. Dayquip specializes in the design and manufacturing of attachments for all makes and models of compact excavators, wheel loaders, crawler dozers, and articulated dump trucks. You can choose from any of their engineered attachments, or they can design and build to your specifications. All of their products can be shipped anywhere in North America hassle-free. If you don't see it, just ask and they will build it. Check out their website at dayquip.com or email them info@dayquip.com. You can also call them toll free 1-844-882-8008 for sales, quotes, and support. Next up, we have Edge Eyewear. Edge designs stylish, quality, and affordable safety eyewear that's as fit for the weekend as the workday. Edge safety glasses and sunglasses are ANSI or CSA compliant, come ready with modern technology, and are comfortable enough to meet the unique protective requirements for those in the mining industry. And they've been delivering a better safety glass since 1998. Visit edgeeyewear.com to learn more and to save 20% with code CROWN20. Next up, we have Railveyor. Railveyor's truly autonomous material haulage system reduced transport costs up to 91%. And because Railveyor is fully electric, it produces zero direct emissions. The truly autonomous system enhances health and safety by eliminating exhaust fumes and enabling remote monitoring of operations. And Railveyor isn't merely a concept or pilot program, it's available right now and is being proven in a growing number of installations around the globe. Visit their new website at railveyor.com today and step into the future of mining. Mining for Miracles. This year, Mining for Miracles is eyeing the completion of its commitment to raise 3.38 million to establish the Cellular and Regenerative Medicine Center at BC Children's Hospital to better understand the genetic cause of heart arrhythmias in children. Get involved or make donations at miningformiracles.ca. We also have OptiSize. OptiSize is a leading edge geophysical acquisition design and software company. OptiSize provides innovative seismic survey designs utilizing the latest field technology and optimizing for advanced processing and quantitative interpretation techniques. OptiSize's mission is to bring sustainable exploration solutions to energy development with their custom land footprint reduction technology, EcoSize. EcoSize enables operators to focus on reducing their environmental and greenhouse gas footprint while imaging all their subsurface targets and reducing costs. Please visit optisize.com to learn more. And last but not least, we have SolarSet. Introducing the SolarSet Fold, the new foldable frame solar system brings power to your residential and commercial property and can be shipped worldwide. Like all SolarSet products, the SolarSet Fold comes turnkey, pre-assembled, and is easily transported and installed. You can learn more about the SolarSet Fold and their full line of amazing solar systems at solarset.com. Now let's get back to the interview.
I just kind of wanted to understand because I saw this chart that you actually sent over, and we'll bring it up here. And it's like it says 500% demand on copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, zinc, iron ore, and uranium. That demand, again, even a couple years ago, there was talk about that demand. Is that 500%? Is that right today? There's that demand, or is there still some sort of projection that is going
Yeah,
on to that?
yeah, that projection is over the next 20 to 30 years,
Oh,
just
okay.
to be clear. So that it's a long-term structural change in terms of how minerals are used in the earth for those clean technologies. And so, but what's already happening is that the supply demand, and this has got worse in the last 6 to 8 weeks with the war in Ukraine, because a lot of these critical minerals have been sourced either from Russia or Ukraine.
Right.
And so that is creating a further disruption. Not only was there a supply gap before, but now there's a further supply gap that the West is having to figure out in order to avoid stalling the energy transition. And that's what we're talking about. Without these minerals, the energy transition stalls and we are locked into a high carbon economy. And so, that gives our work real purpose. We feel we've got a great technology and a great team, but we're fortunate in terms of the moment in time the world is at, that the need for these minerals is going to be in more demand than ever before. And so we're very happy to be able to help.
I'm sure you watch it at a high level. You talked about, the war in Ukraine, and I mean, obviously a huge challenge here has been getting projects off the ground over in, the US and Canada. And while you're watching that, do you see that shift is going to follow at the sort of essentially the government level, actually green lighting these projects, and even communities getting it communicated better to them so that they're wanting these projects, in their backyard in some cases? Do you get any sense of that?
I think we have to continue to improve government and industry. However, the reality, Jared, is today, on average, from a mineral discovery to an open mine is on average 16 years. And what that means is that greenfield exploration simply cannot fill this supply gap. It has to be existing mines, brownfield operations, as they're called. Structurally, that is the only place in the next 10 to 15 years where we can close the gap. Now, greenfield will play a role in the second 15 years of this 30-year transition. But for now, brownfield is where the action's at. And we're seeing huge demand from our customers in the brownfield, existing mine operations, to help them extend the life of that mine and provide access to more of the critical minerals we need for the energy transition.
I want to go into what's been accomplished in the last 7 years. But before we do that, I think at this point, anybody, we've got a lot of new audiences. I think we should just quickly touch, or not even quickly, but we should go into a little bit about what the technology that you have is, and just unpack that a little bit for the audience.
Sure. We use the energy from supernova explosions in space to provide 3D density imaging up to 1 kilometer beneath the Earth's surface. That's our kind of end-to-end process, from space to 1 kilometer beneath the Earth. And so what we provide our clients, and the best analogy I can give you, Jared, is medical imaging. And so the X-ray was introduced over 100 years ago into the medical profession. And then in the early 70s, computer-aided tomography, or a CAT scan, which is basically taking a 2D image X-ray to a 3D image of the human body. That is a very similar technology and similar approach to the technology we've developed. One important difference with the medical imaging, those technologies give off harmful radiation. And so I'm sure if you remember getting X-rays, you usually put a lead-lined vest on to protect your body. Whereas our technology is using background radiation called muons, a subatomic particle. And these muons are around us all the time, every day. And so on average, there's a muon hitting the top of your head every second. And so we're using an energy source that the universe is providing free of charge. And what we've figured out is how to measure the directionality and intensity of those muons And from that, we're able to produce 3D, 2D and 3D density imaging of the subsurface.
Where did this technology has this been getting developed? I mean, I was trying to read through it on probably Wikipedia is not the most accurate place to be learning things, but I was trying to read it and I couldn't. How long has this technology been around, and then sort of where did Ideon sort of refine it to a commercial product? Or
Yeah, really important question. So this technology, Muon Tomography, is the name of the technology. This has been researched for decades at a scientific research level. And in actual fact, the technology has been used in volcanology and also has been used to discover hidden chambers in the Great Pyramids. So
oh,
the technology's been around for a while, but the technology really existed at a research level. And so the detectors were very large, probably the size of the room that I'm in, and so very impractical to be able to use in a industrial application. So it's been going on for decades. And then around 2006, 2007, there was a project geophysicist working in Canada who had read about muon tomography in volcanology, a gentleman called Brian Powell. Unfortunately, Brian's no longer with us. But Brian had the curiosity and wondered, could this be used for mineral exploration? And so he approached Canada's particle physics laboratory, an organization called TRIUMF, based in Vancouver. And he posed the question, could this technology be used for mineral exploration? Now, thankfully for us, somebody at TRIUMF said, we don't know, but we'd love to find out. And that really kicked off an internal research project that led to a proof of concept. We did our first proof of concept on Vancouver Island in 2012 that led to a series of field trials, commercial field trials with major mining companies over the 2012 to 2018 era. What those mining companies told us was that they absolutely loved the 3D imaging we could produce. And they told us the size of our detectors were never going to work. So they challenged us, and just to orientate you, the detector was the size of a large kitchen table and the weight of a small car.
okay.
And so smaller than the size of this room, for sure. But what the industry told us was, if you can make this detector fit in a drill hole, you're going to change the game.
That sounds easy.
Oh yeah, it's just a 50x miniaturization, Jared. So certainly the technical team swallowed hard when we talked about that. But since 2018, in 2 steps, we have now successfully miniaturized our detector to be essentially the diameter of this water bottle, 3.5 meters long, to fit in a standard industry drill hole.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that? So does that have now? Do these sensors? Do they have a product name and like have you got into the level where you're actually out in the market with them?
Yeah, we're absolutely out in the market. We've been deploying our detectors since, I guess, summertime last year. We've been in projects in Canada, in Australia. So we're absolutely deploying extensively. We've got a number of deployments coming up over the next couple of months. So we're very, very, very excited about progress in terms of the industry's adoption of the technology. In terms of the name, I mean, we don't name the detector, and the detector is one piece of our solution.
Right.
We name our overall solution the Discovery Platform. And really that represents that there's a lot of software, there's hardware, there's physical deployment in the field, there's communications, et cetera, that we bring all together for the customer into an integrated solution. So yeah, the Discovery Platform is the product name.
Now, once you get it to a level where essentially the industry has asked you for, now the next step, of course, is deploying it and providing that service to them. Can you walk us through that steps and maybe tie that in with a couple of examples of projects you've done?
Yeah, for sure. Now, before we get to deploying them, we have to manufacture them.
Right.
The detectors, and as I'm sure many of your listeners are aware, there's been a major global supply chain disruption. So the team have had to wade through lots of supply issues to able to get the parts together to be able to produce the detectors. And as I say, we moved into a new facility, and we've now got a world-class manufacturing operation to ensure we're developing the product to the very, very high standards that we hold. So that's very exciting. And then in terms of deployment in the field, we'll ship a number of crates that include our detectors, a tripod that we deploy the detectors from, and some other hardware depending on what the customer's exact requirements are. We'll send our team to the customer site. Typically takes, depending on the size of the project, but typically takes 3 or 4 days to deploy the detectors. And then we're transmitting data from the field direct into the cloud. And so the team back here in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver are doing all the analysis on the back end. And so, the reason we've designed it that way, because we don't want to just deploy a great technology to the customer, but we want to make Ideon a really easy company to do business with, where we take a lot of the headaches off the customer and really provide an end-to-end service. And we call it a full stack solution to make the customer's life easier.
Has it been a challenge to actually, I want to go back to the supply chain for a moment. Has that been able to, have you been able to sort of get through that, or is that an ongoing challenge still?
Yeah, I mean, we've made massive progress, and we've locked in the supply to support 2022's production volumes. So that, 6 months ago, that seemed a very unlikely outcome. But again, credit to the team, the work that's been done, and we've got line of sight to the supply. And obviously, a year ago, we were a pretty insignificant customer opportunity for some of our vendors. But as they've seen us ramp up volumes and they see the trajectory we're on, we've got a different relationship and the ability to get, improved supply from those customers. But look, I'm not going to declare victory on this, Jared.
No, I don't think the world is declaring victory on it.
No, what I've learned in the last, probably if you rewind 2 years, if somebody had told me that supply chain was going to be our number one challenge, I would have called them a liar. But look what ended up happening. Supply chain become our number one challenge with all the technical things we've had to work through. And so we're not declaring victory. We certainly feel we've moved the ball forward substantially. We can support our customers with demand this year, and we're working already on 2023 and 2024 needs. So work in progress.
I want to swing back over to that to the leadership side of it for you, because when you're dealing with a team, you're pushing into a market, you're meeting customers' demands, you're doing all this progress, and then something out of left field like a supply chain issue comes along. How do you deal with that? Because in a leadership position, it's one comment can send a whole team in the wrong direction, whether it's a negative comment or an overly positive comment, like, oh, this will be fine. It's like, well, no, I don't think it is going to be fine. You know what I mean with that. So how do you sort of deal with that when you're sort of it comes out of left field, one of these challenges?
I guess one of the things I've learned, Jared, over many years is that often it is the team that sticks at it that succeeds. Not always the brightest team or the most innovative, but the team that has the tenacity and the brain power to think through hard problems. Invariably, you will catch a break. There's a Nelson Mandela quote that I really like that says, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And that's kind of the philosophy we approach these problems with. We're in the problem solving game.
Right.
We're building a solution that's solving problems for customers. And so every day our role is to solve problems. And so for me, the coaching I give the team is don't think that there's going to be a scenario where there aren't problems to solve.
Right.
That's our role in life. And therefore engage with it like it's our role in life. It's not a burden. It's what we do. It's what we do to be successful. And so creating that type of culture is what I find creates the context and the frame for people to understand that, oh, it's a problem. Okay, well, let's not get too downhearted by that.
Right.
Let's recognize there's work to do. Let's bring the right people together and let's go after it. And of course, it doesn't work first time. Sometimes you're 3, 4, 5 steps into the problem and it's still not working. And that's where it often seems impossible until it's done, because at the moment when it feels most impossible, often the breakthrough is just the other side of that moment. So sticking at it for me is hugely important
It
when you
really
get to
is.
those
No,
really difficult problems.
yeah, and I think it's easy. I was actually just talking about this to my wife yesterday that you can, 'cause she's in a management role as well, is that it's easy to get the challenges. You start to think of them as getting in your way of the job rather than being the job.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And just changing that mental frame. I mean, instead of then when a problem shows up, people getting demoralized, losing energy. When a problem shows up, is okay. It's another one of those. Let's get after it. And so you kind of spring into it rather than like playing a victim role as, oh my God, the world's dealt us another problem.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that again, we're going to tie that back into now talking about some of these. I mean, all of that attitude, that approach, the skill set behind it to actually solve the problems, all that comes into. I mean, you've worked with, I mean, some major companies, and I think I'd like to highlight them. Here on the show. Are you able to name some of the ones that you've actually got to work with in the last
Yeah,
few months?
sure. Yeah, you asked me that in terms of deployment. So yeah, absolutely. There's some that we can't talk about just yet, but absolutely. We're working with Orano in Saskatchewan. Been a great partner over. They worked with us on some of our previous version detectors, and we're front of the queue as soon as we had the borehole device. So we got an exciting deployment with them in Saskatchewan in Canada. We're working with BHP. I think we chatted about BHP last time. We were making some good early steps with BHP. That relationship has continued to flourish. We've just deployed a couple of different sites in Australia over the last few weeks. So that's very, very exciting. And just in the last couple of weeks, we announced a major engagement with Glencore in Quebec.
Congratulations.
Glencore, again, one of the top 5 mining companies on the planet, putting their trust in us to help them find, new minerals to help the energy transition. So yeah, I mean, what we're excited about is the mining industry is getting on board and moving quickly to do so. I mean, I've been around mining for 20 odd years, and it's always had a reputation of slow to adopt. That is not what we're seeing from the industry right now.
No, I'm not seeing that in these interviews in the last year or so. That it's just not, it's completely different tone than a few years ago when I was doing these.
It really is, and credit to the industry because it's difficult to move from a slow to adopt position to a open to embrace and ready to try and ready to bring new partners to the table. And just the companies we're working with, I've got to hold my hat off, take my hat off to them. Really open to new thinking and new approaches. And so that makes it really exciting. Well, we've got a great technology and we're facing off with an industry that's ready for change and wanting change. That makes things move very quickly.
Are these each of these projects, are they fairly unique, or now that you have, you can go right directly into the borehole, and that can you is it very similar? Is it sort of a repetitive thing, which is, or is it, are you having to adapt per project when you're on these different sites?
Yeah, very much. I mean, look, we have a standard solution, but very much we tune and focus that solution depending on exactly what it is that customer's looking to achieve on that site. So we start with a customer and really we start with outcomes. Okay, what does a great outcome look like for you at this site? What would that mean in terms of what you're trying to image? What commercial implications are there? So we spend a lot of time with customer getting into their space, understanding their problems and what good looks like to them. And so then that enables us to develop the solution to achieve those objectives. And so let me give you an example. If you're looking for a deposit that's maybe tens of meters in width, in cross-sectional space, that's a very different requirement than if you're looking for a deposit that's a lens that goes down to maybe 1 or 2 meters. And so we configure our solution quite differently to achieve those two kind of different solutions. So a lot of our work is education with the customer so that they know what the capabilities of the technology are. But then we spend a lot of time in what are the outcomes. And then back here, we do a lot of work in terms of designing the solution that will achieve those outcomes for the customer.
Now, but when you work with, when you work with a company like a Glencore, obviously we don't want to be specific on that, but if you're working with a company, do they know what the problem is, or do they know that they want to find more, they want the imaging, but they're not even how much education, you mentioned that, how much education is going into even what they can achieve with the technology?
Yeah, so our education is absolutely helping the client understand how the technology works, what it does, what the limitations are. And so absolutely we spend a lot of time of helping the customer understand that, because once they have that understanding, then the customer starts to ideate themselves in terms of where it can be applied and how useful it can be. But also the customer knows their site. They typically know their site very well. And so particularly in brownfield applications, what we find is the customer will come to the table. We tend to see mineralization and these types of size bodies, this level of density contrast. They tend to be orientated in this direction. So the customer is very well versed on that site, what typically they have seen before, or what they have seen before, and then we marry our technology, the iteration and customization of the deployment to meet with the requirements of the customer. So that's really where this partnership, us on the technology and the customer and the understanding of the site, is really what gets us to a great outcome.
Can we talk a little bit about the business model? And I want to preface that question with another question. Has the business model changed sort of since inception, or have you stuck with the same one, and what is it at now?
Yeah, certainly in the very early days of the business, the business was kind of a project based. We would turn up, do one survey, take our stuff away, and then maybe the customer might want us at some point in the future. What we've shifted to over the last couple of years is what we refer to as a science-based SaaS. And when we say SaaS, we mean solution as a service. And so we see an opportunity, and we heard from the industry that the industry is quite frustrated in terms of how commercially they have to draw down on geophysics services. And so what we have done also is innovate the business model. We're providing the customer hardware, software, data communications, sometimes power, software, AI, etc. And we're wrapping it all together for the customer. We're managing all that complexity on behalf of the customer, and we're delivering it to them for a fixed monthly fee. And the feedback we're getting is that people like the simplicity of that business model. It means the customer doesn't have to go and get capital approved, CapEx approved to buy hardware. So we own all the hardware, we own all the components, and we will bring that solution to the customer. And what we're also seeing, Jared, is, initially the customer, because they weren't aware of the technology, maybe not overly comfortable with it, and would want to do a 6-month project. But now we're seeing customers wanting 1 year, 2 year, 3 years of a contract with us, because they can see they're not just going to use it once. They're going to deploy it in one area, immediately move it to the next area, immediately move it to the next. So customers are providing longer term commitment, which is great for them and us, because we're in a real partnership. It's not a one-off transaction. We're in a multi-year partnership focused on delivering those outcomes.
Now, is that when you say deploy, are they deploying your team as well? Or can you get them to a point, are there some companies that are able to manage this equipment internally?
Yeah, so really, really good question. And look, our intention has always been that for the first couple of years, it will be the Ideon team deploying the technology in the field. The reason we view that is because we see a huge learning opportunity, and that's actually transpiring as we deploy. We learn things about how we can do that more efficiently, how we can adapt the product. So that was our kind of position coming in. Obviously, with the disruption that we talked about over the last couple of years, we haven't been able to travel to Australia, for example. And so what's happened is we've been able to work with the client to be able to deploy on our behalf. We've actually worked with third-party geophysics companies to be able to deploy on our behalf. And so ironically, the disruption of the last couple of years has actually forced us to deal with some of that, those things that we were planning to be a year or two out quicker. And the nice thing is, and the benefit that we're seeing is these geophysics companies are very well equipped in the local area with teams, with equipment, with vehicles to be able to make the deployment even more efficient than what we've been able to do. And so, yeah, sometimes the problem creates a new opportunity. And certainly the last couple of years created a new opportunity for us to embrace third-party partners who could deploy in the field on our behalf.
Is that something, and that's something that'll probably be here to stay, I would imagine, especially on a global scale?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we never intended to do it forevermore. And certainly it helps our ability to quickly respond to the industry's needs. Scaling up teams to travel around the world, to work in foreign jurisdictions, in remote mine site. I mean, that's a major friction point for the business. And so the ability to leverage teams that are already in the local market, probably working with the client on other geophysics, we just see a win-win opportunity there.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I guess going a step further, or maybe a step back in this case, is the actual partners involved with the technology. I might not be using the word partners correctly, but can you talk a little bit about just what it takes? Like you sent me a slide. I'm seeing Microsoft on here, and all that it takes to actually put something like this together.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the EarthX for low impact mining project that we announced at the back end of last year.
Yeah.
So that's a $13.6 million project, supported by the federal government of Canada through their supercluster framework, the innovation framework. And really I never considered, Jared, delivering our vision through a consortium model. I mean, that's very honestly. But once I got to learn about the supercluster and how it worked and what it was trying to achieve, really the principle was you can achieve more with partners than you can yourself. Mm-hmm. And so the more we got involved in that and started to kind of scratch away at this framework and how it all worked, and then we started to think about, wow, if we could imagine the partners that we could put around a table to actually go and develop some of these technologies. So that's what we did. We imagined which partners we would have around the table. And so what we've actually delivered is a consortium of partners that includes Simon Fraser University, includes Microsoft, includes BHP, includes DS Geophysical, includes Fireweed Zinc, a very high caliber group of partners that represent the industry, SMEs like Ideon, and also academia. And really what we're achieving through that is we're developing 48 months of roadmap we're delivering in 24 months, which would just have been completely impossible for Ideon to do that on its own. Right. And so we are, so excited about the partnerships. And obviously we're way into the project now, and just the way our partners are showing up, their expertise and understanding of the industry, it's just all helping us move quicker and get the technology better to continually improve what we deliver for the customer.
Well, it must. My assumption would be that these bottlenecks, we're a small company here, and it's like the wrong adapter can delay you for hours, that kind of stuff. And it must help right there is it must be a big thing. It's just those bottlenecks of, oh, we don't have anybody on our team that knows how to read this particular type of thing. Now you've got someone available that just knows this stuff. It's not a question for them. They just have the answer.
Yeah, and those people are now colleagues. They're not some far off distant organization. They're partners and colleagues. Right. And so for me, the couple of big silos I always think about is a silo between academia and SMEs or technology companies. I mean, that's a huge canyon of a gap. And now we're working hand in glove with SFU and their 4D Labs group. And that's an amazing partnership. We have 4 professors and 5 postdoctoral fellows 100% committed to this project. dedicated. Sorry, the professors aren't 100% committed, but the five
I was going to say the poor
postdoc, the five postdoctoral fellows absolutely are 100% committed. And so we now have this amazing research horsepower. And then if I think about, a technology company like Ideon, the other big silo is then between that and industry. But now we have Fireweed Zinc and we have BHP to be able to test things with, the thinking initially, but then be able to test products so that, again, we get the product right before we're bringing it to market. So just so many possibilities, from this type of consortium-based innovation. And so we're super proud of the consortium we've put together. We're excited about the technologies we're developing, and we're getting a lot of great feedback from the industry that these technologies are going to fill other gaps. And obviously, Muon Tomography is a core to it, but we're developing technologies that fill other important gaps to improve the customer's subsurface certainty or improve the uncertainty.
Something I've learned on this show, doing quite a few interviews is, there's these amazing results that come through, and you've done a really nice job of sort of walking through, like the supply chain challenges and things like that. You said something just before we started talking about the Earth X-ray is you didn't think that that was going to be the approach, something like a supercluster. We actually did an episode about the supercluster, I think 2.5 years ago. We had
Oh, wow.
very large accounting firm come on and sort of unpack that system. And I'll just make it about myself for a second. I've looked at some of these, projects and grants, and it's like this overwhelming thing. Oh, look at, no, we don't line up there. We do line up there. Okay, we'd have to change this to make it fit. And was that part of the hesitation of sort of diving in to something like this, is just that maybe the thought that rather than sort of freeing you, it can constrict you, and it sort of adds a whole like bureaucracy to what, when you're trying to sort of move forward? Were those sort of some of the hesitations?
Yeah, honestly, I just hadn't given it much thought. I mean, I'd always kind of
Okay.
orientated around, okay, we get the Ideon team, we build the team, and we go after and tackle these problems. But the more I got into the business and the more conversations we had with customers, it became clearer and clearer to me that one technology wasn't gonna solve the whole problem. That actually it was the integration of a number of technologies that would get to the real, holistic problem to solve. And then when you start to think in that way, what you realize is like, wow, that's a lot of R&D for one company to take on.
Right.
Now, the supercluster framework makes it easy. And so if we were trying to build a consortium just as Ideon on our own, but what the supercluster has done is built the legal framework, the commercial framework that enables all of these. BHP is the biggest mining company in the world compared to Ideon, allows these companies to plug in together in a way that makes sense. And so, yeah, it was maybe a lack of real thought about that as a viable solution. But the more I got involved, and then as we started to try to pick the A team, who would we put together if we could do this? And as we approached those organizations and found their willingness to engage and actually eagerness to engage, that really tipped the scales for me. That wow. Now, of course, we all went in with our eyes open, because these big consortiums can also work in the opposite way, that they slow things down, that it takes for ages to get decisions. And so we went in, each leader of the consortium member went in eyes wide open, committed to each other that wasn't going to be the case here. And so far, so good. We've been making excellent traction, and I say just enjoying being able to sit around the table with the research group, the development group, and the customer who's going to use the technology, and talk through and whiteboard solutions in that context.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that was because and I'm listening to you talk, and again, and we've talked enough to know sort of that some of these skills that you have in leadership. And I'm hoping that somebody who's trying to do a new technology, we have people listening across all different types of industries, is that to not shy away. There are challenges when you do these collaborations. There definitely are. We had another company out of Wyoming, and they were talking about, you keep trying to do these collaborations, and then sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but the end result can be absolutely amazing if, what you said earlier, you stick with it, going in with your eyes wide open. You're trying to solve a problem. Like you sort of have to have these things in place.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely foundational. And look, there's like we talked about earlier, with problems. If you go into a consortium thinking it's all going to go smoothly and there's going to be no problems, you're being quite naive.
Mhm.
And so go in recognizing that you've got to lean in, you've got to get your sleeves rolled up, you've got to work through difficult commercial issues, IP issues. All of those things have to be resolved before you actually get to the work. And so that's obviously a good test for the consortium. Can they work through those contracting issues and manage each other and manage expectations and not make it just about their organization? And for me, that was a huge test. And the consortium, that we're working with, I mean, passed with flying colors. And so that told me, Jared, that actually this group is ready to take on some of the challenges that we're going to face over the couple of years of the program.
Well, if you're ever having a meeting with all these leaders, I will sign every NDA that you've ever seen. I would love to just hear the conversation and just see how it all unfolds. I would absolutely love to hear it. The next 5 years, Gary, what does that look like for Ideon?
Yeah, I mean, we see just a moment in time in the world to play a massive role in finding the critical minerals to help the world move to renewable energy. I mean, that's a vision is transforming subsurface discovery, but under that's a real purpose that really matters. And so, of course, we're going to solve difficult customer problems. We're going to make our business easy to do business with, and as a result of those things, we're going to grow our business. We're going to add to the team. We're going to enhance our technology. So we see a super exciting next 5 years with the business and playing a very active role in helping the mining industry shift from kind of the legacy perception of mining to one where there is no energy transition without mining, and the world starts to recognize the important strategic role that mining plays in our livelihood.
I think it's coming to the forefront more and more, and I think, there's people like Elon Musk that are, of course, now there's some people are after him for whatever reasons, but it's, he's starting to put out there, maybe we need to get into the mining business and that does make it draws these, people that the mining isn't in their viewpoint. And I do have part of the reason our show is anybody can watch it at any time. We don't have a paywall or anything like that, is because I do think once people start looking at mining, they're going to want to find out companies like Ideon. That's not what people think of who are outside of the mining world. They're not realizing it. And to make that a question, how important do you think it is that pivot? I've certainly seen that the mining industry seems to be a lot more open. When we first started, we couldn't get a mining company to come on, and now we've got companies like Rio Tinto coming on the show. Um, it How important do you think that actually is, that the mining industry is willing to look and talk to the public on very public platforms like this?
Yeah, because the reality is, if everything we use in human life is either grown or it is developed from the minerals that we extract from the earth. Now, I don't think the average person in the street really understands that when you turn the lights on, when you use your mobile phone, when you boil a kettle, all of these elements are sourced from the earth. And so mining's got a big job to do in terms of repositioning itself. And certainly we're in the middle of raising our Series A funding round. And what we've heard from a number of VCs is we don't invest in mining, we don't invest in oil and gas. And we challenge that to say, okay, we understand that position historically, that makes some sense. But in a world going forward, where the world depends on the critical minerals from mining for the survival of the human race, why would you not want to invest in that? And
Right.
so we challenge these VCs, and you can almost see in that moment that there's a lack of understanding in terms of what the role mining needs to play go forward.
Yeah, and I hope we're all doing, you being on here and supporting our show, and I hope we're all doing sort of our part to do it. I'm going to put a link into the to the website on the about us. page of your website, because you have some of your values are I don't know who came up with them. I'm sure you were involved in them in some way. And this one I want to touch on before we wrap up this interview. Boldly ambitious, exceptionally human.
Yes.
Talk about that, because it's great, but I think it needs more explanation.
Yeah, I mean, it touches on some of the things. So maybe first of all, you saw who was involved. So the leadership team, and we involved our whole team in the process of developing our values. It was something it took quite a number of months to actually hone and tune. So Kim Lawrence, who is a VP for talent and customer experience, led that piece of work. And I'm really happy that we've captured the sentiment of who we are as a company. So boldly ambitions and exceptionally human. What we mean by that is we are aspirational in our objectives. We're not here to make incremental improvements in our customers' business. They need us to help them make step change improvements in their business. And so that's the boldly ambitious. But with that, we don't want to be arrogant. We don't want to be overconfident. We want to be very human, down to earth, sleeves rolled up, good partners that build trust and confidence over time. And so, yeah, we try to capture the two sides of the value, that we want to be bold, we are bold, and we want to be very human in the way we show up as a team.
I've seen, I look at these pretty much every day as new people come in, and every now and then I get one that stands out to me, and that one certainly did. And I think it's a good explanation for it as well. Gary, thanks for being on the show. I love doing these part twos. These for me, this is sort of what the show was actually built around when we first started. It was never meant to be a one-off. You come on once and you introduce your company, and so you coming back, it means a lot to us. And I hope in some way we've given you the opportunity to really explain what you're accomplishing here as a company.
Yeah, I mean, we enjoy the relationship, Jared. I'd say the familiarity a second time around. We know each other a little bit better now. But yeah, it's a great platform you've created for the mining industry that allows small technology companies at ours to get a broad reach and help educate the market in terms of what it is we're doing, how we can help. So yeah, congratulations on the progress you're making. We appreciate the relationship with you and the team, and many success for great success for the future.
And thank you to your team for sending me some notes so I could ask halfway intelligent questions on
Not at all, Jared. You're very, very welcome, and the question and the smooth integration of those questions, you do a great job. So we appreciate it.
Well, it's a lot of fun. Okay, thank you, Gary. I hope you do come back on soon, and congratulations on the success.
Thanks, Jared. All the best. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you everybody for watching. We will put lots of links so you can check out more about Ideon. Everything we discussed, you can find a lot of the information on their website, and of course contact them. We'll put links to their LinkedIn. They post quite a bit, so you can sort of follow them along, and some links to articles and everything like that. So please keep following us, sending us guests, challenging us to find new topics to unpack in the industry. We always need to look for a new one. So thank you for your support. We will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.